Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up today, you're already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present two people who are longtime friends with each other. They share a passion for live music, especially jam bands, which, if you know anything about me, is also my favorite. These guys are also experts at building communities and are particularly committed to human rights, especially voting rights. I promise you will leave today smarter and more enlightened and inspired than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. Please introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people in the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a little bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in jobs throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people make connections. And my goal in doing these webinars is to help you do that. I want you to use this as an opportunity to develop some new friends in the music industry. Please take full advantage of that. Also, I want to invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, and say hello to your pals. Make some new ones. Also, please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and speakers. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this series free. Special thanks to First Horizon Bank, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and Better Than Booze, and MedJet. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Dave Margulies. Dave started his career in music while attending Tulane University in New Orleans. He's been to every single jazz fest since 1978, which, Dave, I can't wait to learn how that's happened and how few people have that same distinction. In New Orleans, he helped run Tulane's college radio station called WTUL and worked for the seminal New Orleans band, the Radiators, in 1982. After moving to the New Jersey, New York area, Dave worked as managing editor for CMJ New Music Report, a college radio trade magazine that chronicled what was being played on college radio stations across the country. In 1990, Dave moved to San Francisco and became A&R rep for Sony Music. In 1995, he joined the High Sierra Music Festival and became a partner and co-producer of the event, which recently celebrated its 32nd year. He's also been a member of the board of directors of several nonprofit organizations, most proudly with Headcount since its inception. And joining today, Dave, as today's featured guest, is Andy Bernstein. Andy spent a career at the intersection of music and social impact. In 2004, he co-founded Headcount, a grassroots voter registration organization backed by members of the Grateful Dead, Dave Matthews, and an assortment of other touring musicians. To date, Headcount has registered over 1.25 million voters and forged alliances with dozens of artists and other organizations, everyone from Ariana Grande to Billie Eilish to Spotify, Paramount, and all the major record labels. Under his leadership, Headcount won multiple Clio and Shorty Awards, and Andy also produced several PSAs that aired on network television and more than a dozen benefit concerts. He was chosen as an honoree in the 2021 Billboard Change Agents list in recognition of Headcount's unprecedented impact and innovative model. That same year, he was also named to the board of directors of Global Citizen. In 2023, Andy stepped back from the day-to-day at Headcount, continuing to serve as a senior advisor, and launched a consulting practice. Shortly thereafter, he was asked to be president of the board of directors of the Divided Sky Foundation, an addiction and recovery organization founded by Phish guitarist Trey Anastasio. It is my pleasure to welcome these two rock stars to our platform today. Take it away, boys.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, Andy.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
I'm good, man. How you feeling?
I'm doing good, doing well. I'm in Philadelphia today.
What brings you to Philadelphia?
I'm going to see Air at the Met, and I'm in the home of my friend Aaron Magner of the Disco Biscuits. Forgive me for being long on cell phone. I came here for the good internet, and then the internet, the cable, sent him a note saying, sorry, your internet isn't working.
Well,
But through the miracle of cell service, oh, I look funny. My hands look huge. Well, there we go.
you look great. You look
Thank you.
great. Well, I'm here in Los Angeles. I'm down here for the Robbie Robertson tribute, the Life is a Carnival show that Trey Anastasio will be part of, Eric Clapton. It's a Don Was thing, as you probably know, but it's a star-studded lineup and a show I felt I couldn't miss. So
You
just
know,
down here for a couple of days.
right on. If I didn't have these air tickets for the last 6 months, I might have gone out because so many people I know are there, and it's going to be incredible. Just
I'm so
incredible.
curious about the air show too, because a friend of mine just saw him, and well, we'll catch up after that.
No spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers whatsoever. Well, gosh, so much has happened since we hung out really the last time, and I guess we'll go backwards and then work forwards a little bit, just so people on the webinar here can get a little deeper sense of who you are and when in your life, or what was going on in your life when you thought about starting Headcount in 2004. We can go back a little further than that. I know you wrote a book, a fish-related book called The Farmer's Almanac, and that came out when, in the mid 90s?
Yeah, that was 95. So we came out really well, literally a few months after Jerry passed. So when the timed coincidentally to the true explosion of Fish's popularity. And I started it with a couple buddies. So this is yeah, in the summer '95, we were at Sugarbush seeing Fish, and just started talking about this idea. Let's create a book for really all the information and mythology. And at the time, the internet wasn't really there yet. So it'd be pretty tech savvy to be on the internet. So basic background about your favorite band was not something that everybody had. So we put together a book inspired by Dead Bass, with set lists and stats. But then what we wanted it to be funny. We wanted it to capture the essence and the um true meaning of being a Fish fan, which is, of course, there's no one true meaning, there's many. So we ended up self-publishing this book, sold 1,000 copies in the parking lot in 3 days, pretty much. And then printed more and started selling them to the hippie stores all over the country, like Grateful Dead headquarters type shops. And then we put out 6 volumes. The fifth one was through a major publisher. So this was kind of my side hustle for my first I guess 6 years after college. And then a few years after that, up to late 2003, it's the height of the Iraq War. And people forget, obviously, it's a very politically polarized time right now, but it was also a very politically polarized time then. And I was really bothered by a lot of stuff that was happening. And one day I was a reporter. I was covering sports business. So I had a completely different career, separate from music, all of that. And I was interviewing somebody, and we just started talking about it's like so yeah, I think he dropped in aside, and we started talking about how messed up it was that Guantanamo Bay, the United States of America, was throwing people in jail without charges, without habeas corpus, and stuff that just really bothered me. I'm a big civil liberties guy, and that was really bothering me. So I kind of had this moment where I was like, I got to do something. I got to stop complaining. I got to do something. What can I do? And I thought of a few ideas, and then kind of had the idea for Headcount. I was like, well, if we can get people to vote, if I can get people to vote who just go to the same concerts I go to, maybe that's something achievable. That's in my sphere of influence. So I kind of thought, hey, what if we had volunteers in every city, and when the bands go on tour, the volunteers kind of meet them in their home city and just set up a little voter registration drive. Really simple idea. And I emailed it to my good friend Mark Bernstein of the Disco Biscuits. I wrote him a 3-page email, and he responds with 2 words, I'm in. And so Mark and I started the thing. And then a very quick thing we did was really the first thing was we put together a board of directors and reached out to the people we knew. So I brought in Andy Gadiel, the founder of Jambase, John Schwartz, who was with Relics Magazine at the time, now on Sirius. Um, Mark brought in Al Schneer, who brought in Bob Weir. And I think some of our other board members brought in other folks. Schwartz brought in Rich Goodstone of Superfly, and I'm pretty sure Gadiel brought in yourself.
He
So,
did.
yeah. So you were there with us at the beginning. You've seen it all. Pete Shapiro was a friend of mine. I brought Pete in. I think, I forget who brought in Nadia Pressure. But this is the founders. I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two here. Steph Camardo was in it at the beginning, Warren Haynes's manager, and also a serious DJ. So we were just like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's figure out how to register voters at concerts. Then now it's 1.5 million voters later.
So,
We
so
have
here
them.
you, so here you are in 2004, and you're a jam band guy, you're a fish guy, you're writing for sports business publications, you've got some passion for activism and human rights, etc. So you pull your community together and you start this organization. Did you have any idea 20 years ago that headcount would be the beast that it is today?
Dude, I had no idea, to the point when people would ask, what are you going to do in the future? My answer always was nothing, take a nap. This is a 1 year thing. We just wanted to kind of sprint to the election and see what was possible and then move on in our lives. And that was really the plan. And in 2005, we didn't do anything. And in early 2006, people started being like, all right, what are we doing for the midterms? I'm like, what? You want me to do this again? And one guy sends me an email and said, because I was telling people no. And one guy sends me an email and says, you can't let something this magical die. And I'm like, oh shit, how do you argue with that? So I was like, all right, well, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right now. Because it was very hectic the first year. I mean, we honestly, we were very successful. We registered 50,000 voters, but we really didn't know what we were doing. And so in 2006, all right, we're going to build a plan. We're going to build a scalable model. We're going to take this thing down to its core. We're going to document our practices so that we can properly be uniform throughout the country. And it's weird, like when you never think a plan's really going to work. You put it on paper and you just kind of hope for the best. And this plan like worked. And by 2008, we had a staff. We'd raised a little bit of money, not very much. I mean, totally bootstrapping, but we were able to go from all volunteers to like a team of 4 people. And from there, it was a slog. I mean, especially the 2008, really up to 2015, we were bare bones. We worked in Peter Shapiro's office, the Relics Magazine office in the city, and the Relics kids all had their own desks. We like shared desks. We were doing everything we could to stretch every penny, and a lot of credit to the people who were involved and who really sacrificed a lot to make the organization succeed. And then I think the turning point for us as an organization was 2015, particularly with Fairly Well, the Grateful Dead 50th anniversary. We did something called Participation Row there, which was we ran like the activism village, and we raised money for all the different Grateful Dead affiliated nonprofits, which was like 17 organizations. We auctioned a guitar for $500,000 that Bobby had played on stage. And that to me was the real turning point where we at least were able to kind of be like, all right, we're gonna last. We're not gonna disappear. And at the same time, we kept on just finding different ways to be relevant. Like in 2010, we did a PSA with Jay-Z where it was just taken from, he was on stage at Bonnaroo and he kind of had this stage banter about how we had changed the world. And it was about, he was talking really about Barack Obama getting elected, but I spliced it to make it kind of about more generic, just about young voters. And we turned that into a network television PSA. Even in 2008, we had done 2004, we had done network TV PSAs with Bobby, Dave Matthews, and Trey that we filmed also at Bonnaroo. There were a few like really key spots. 2012, the first National Voter Registration Day, we ran a big social media campaign with artists holding up clipboards that said register to vote now, and that really took off. The Parkland students, our work with them in 2018 was really critical and led to Ariana Grande partnering with us, which is a big breakthrough. At the beginning, I didn't think we'd ever be in a pop music space. I still couldn't tell you the name of a Ariana Grande song, to be honest with you, but I can tell you how many voters we registered with her. It was 30,000. So, like, that's kind of the brief history.
So the organization, I mean, from my involvement as a board member for 20 years, the way I've seen the arc of headcount from when you founded it to today was an organic process. And as you started talking about, like you just went one day at a time, one step after the next, and built this thing organically and paid attention to what was needed and built a team around you and did the heavy lifting. And now, what are there, like over 40 employees, and it's a 25-member board and like 150 team leaders, and it's incredible what you've built and the commitment of the team.
Well, thanks for saying that, Dave, and let's shout out that team, because it's as any organization grows, the key is being able to rebuild as you go, build the plane as you fly it, as they say, and find ways to, like, increase what your impact by spreading out the responsibilities. And that sounds really easy, but anyone who's ever built an organization knows that the human puzzle is the art of it, and empowering people and giving people ownership of their lanes, which is, I'll be the first to say, as a manager, can be one of the most challenging things. The people who are great at it build very large companies. I managed to get to about 22. Um, Tom, I see the question there. By the way, I want to say that the internet where I am has come back on. So I'm going to try to move to an actual laptop here on the fly. Dave, why don't you talk a little? Dave, let me ask you a question. High Sierra, we talk about building things organically. I think of High Sierra, I don't know the history here, but I think of High Sierra as like the original festival, and you predate the modern era of festivals. You were there before Bonnaroo, before festivals became these 50 to 70,000 people, kind of very large money events. You were building community, and you were like a kind of heartbeat of the West Coast jam scene and live music scene before people even knew what to call it. So I don't think you and I have ever really talked about the beginning of High Sierra, and I've always been curious because by the time Headcount started, High Sierra was looked at as one of the pillars of our community, and I'd love to know kind of what the origin was there, and kind of what those first 10 years were like.
Okay, so everybody pay attention up here. Andy is going to do the equivalent of pulling the tablecloth out from the table and not having one piece of silverware or glassware be disrupted as he changes technology. So we'll pivot for a moment. I'll talk about High Sierra while Andy gets situated. But Andy, High Sierra, I started going to High Sierra as a patron in the earliest years when John Prine played and J.J. Cale played, and the Radiators were considered the house band. And I would go as a patron every year. And then I started my job as a A&R talent scout there he is. Seamless. Started my job as talent scout for Sony Music, and I would go to shows, and I would see my partner, Roy Carter, outside of shows at the Great American Music Hall or Slim's or wherever it was, handing out flyers for High Sierra. And one day I said to him, I love what you do. I've been to your festival several times, and I gave him my business card back in the day when business cards were still a thing. And I said, I'd love to work with you someday. And he called me the very next day and said, if you're serious about that, we should get together and talk. And I met him and my other partner, Rebecca, at the Whole Foods in Berkeley, California. And we talked about what it would look like if I joined the organization. And in 1995, in year 5, I became a partner and co-producer of the event, and have been there since. As you know, and many people in the industry, and perhaps some folks on the call, the founder and my partner, Roy Carter, passed away earlier this year. So High Sierra is in a big transition, especially with the current downturn of the festival world and the festival business. I don't know if you happen to see that article in the SF Gate the other day, but basically there was an article that came out literally 2 days ago, and the title of the article was "We're Fucked." F $ apostrophe whatever CKED, and it was a story about how the bubble has burst on the music festival scene in California, citing festivals like the Sierra Nevada World Music Festival that has shuttered, how Winter Wondergrass has canceled 2025 for their Lake Tahoe play, and they talked with a bunch of other festivals that have basically either, like Skull and Roses, have either been in trouble or shuttered or retooled. So High Sierra took a hit in the last couple of years, and we're in a retooling process and hoping, you said the perfect thing when you were talking about headcount in its early days, where someone said to you, this is too magical for you to let this thing die. Well, that's exactly how I feel about High Sierra and the community that we've built over 32 years, and the support that we have gotten from our community, and the encouragement that we've gotten. So I believe that if we build it or rebuild it, the people will come and support it. It is too important of an event to let go. So I'm doing everything I can in my capacity to keep High Sierra afloat and to have High Sierra return next year in 2025. So I'm feeling hopeful about it. It's something that's in progress and should be settled shortly.
Well, I sure hope so. I feel like if you ask the average festival consumer, what would you rather be at, a place with 70,000 people or 7,000? What would you rather support, independently owned festivals or corporate owned festivals? The answer would be obvious. And yet, unfortunately, the consumer dollar tends to go toward these really, really big events. And I don't really, I think part of it is the jam scene did just get older, and camping and things like that became less appealing. But that's too simpler explanation in my view. Like, do you have any sense of why events like High Sierra, that is obviously so special, where do the business challenges come in that mounted over time?
So the business challenges coming, the post-COVID world, if you, to drill it down a little bit further, people like us, independent promoters, received some government aid to stay afloat. Artists who were touring did not. Like, they got a little bit of PPP money, but there was a grant that was put together by members of our industry who went to Congress, and they went to Amy Klobuchar in Minnesota, and they went to the other side of the aisle, and John Corwin in Texas, and they put together this bill. It was called the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, and we all got a bunch of money to keep our tires on the road. Live Nation didn't get that kind of money because it was for independent promoters, and it kept small venues open across the country, small theaters. And it also kept independent festivals like us afloat through the pandemic. And then even in the cushion years where we took big hits over the last 2 years. So we're basically like back to zero, ground zero, and now we've got to sustain ourselves. But almost every line item in our budget is now 30% plus more expensive. So you can't raise your ticket prices 30% and call it a day and expect the same metrics to work out. You've got to make adjustments. And that means making the smartest calls possible to remain sustainable. And I think a lot of festivals just continued on doing business as usual and thinking that people would return. And then they found out, oh my goodness, what I'm paying for a stage back in 2019 is now 2.5 times that. I have a well, he's not a teenager anymore, but I have a 20-year-old son, and one of his favorite things to eat for years has been this giant Beecher's macaroni and cheese. And Beecher's is a a cheese company that's based in Seattle, and at the Seattle airport, they sell their mac and cheese, and they package it and sell it in Costco. And it's this massive macaroni cheese thing. Pre-pandemic, it was $9.99. It's $14.99 for that now. And so that's like a 50% difference in 5 years. So you look at that and you can apply that across the board. You can apply that to the price of gas. I mean, everything that needs to get trucked in, sound and lights and porta potties and golf carts and everything else. I mean, that just all that adds up, and that has ticked up and ticked up and ticked up. And then you add the artist fees when the artists weren't getting paid during the pandemic. Well, now it's the artists' time to sort of make up for that. And the artist fees have gone through the roof. So you've really got to be, you've got to be a lot more savvy in terms of how you program and what you spend your money on. And, to me, High Sierra, the beauty of High Sierra and really the gem of High Sierra has always been about artist discovery and finding, that was our thing. That was what we were known for. I mean, come for the headliners, but stay for the undercard. And it's always been about the middle card and the undercard and who your new favorite band is going to be. It's not about, our headliners, even though, you do need some name recognition acts for people to latch onto and go, yeah, but High Sierra's, it's gotten to the point where people come for the experience and they trust us to curate an incredible experience. And so that's really what we're banking on is the trust that we've built with our community over 32 years. And certain things like, the Jazz and Heritage Festival in New Orleans. I mean, I've gone every year for the last 46 years. I don't even look at the lineup. I know I'm going. I love New Orleans. I love the community there. I love the whole experience. And that's kind of the same thing at High Sierra. I mean, sure, people want to see bands they love, but I think they know that they're going to get that, whether they know the bands or not. So I have to bank on that. Whereas other festivals, Coachella and Outside Lands, and I mean, they're catering to a younger audience, and it's a pop culture. So you're catering to pop culture versus someone like me in High Sierra. I'm catering to music lovers, and there's a big difference between the two.
I love seeing some of the names here. Jeff Kilgore shouting out the slip at High Sierra. I do remember Jeff running around, I think without any clothes on, at High Sierra. No, I'm making that up. Yeah, it's like, I don't envy you guys. I have so much respect for, Shapiro often says, like, promoter is you're just a gambler, but you're a gambler. If you win a little, and if you lose a lot. And it's really, the amount of, like building headcount. We certainly, we have our stories of bootstrapping and really making a lot of sacrifice, but I can't imagine what it's like, just the indigestion that would come from, like, if you have bad weather that you can't control, the difference in bottom line and difference in experience. And it's just, watching this all kind of unfold. I also seen that the festival business is just a more sophisticated business. Like, one tiny little example is when Headcount used to go to festivals, we would bring our little tent. We would bring our little Easy Up, or even something crappier than an Easy Up that we bought for $79, and that's where we'd set up. And over the years, every festival started doing like pipe and drape, like, and housing us in a better place. And then over the years, festivals started charging us for that. And it was just an evolution. And I'm very grateful to most festivals because they really don't charge headcount. And if they do, they're really charging their costs. And when the festivals would come to us and say, hey, we want you to pay like a fee, we just as policy wouldn't do it, because we knew that, honestly, I think we were bringing value to the festivals. But when a festival wanted us to cover just their expenses, that we would usually do. And to the great generosity and credit that most did not ask us for this over the years, most actually helped us fund. You did things like you would give a golf cart to a raffle winner, an auction winner, and things like that. So we really, like, I'm very grateful, but sort of with the benefit of 20-year hindsight, when I'm out of the sort of that grind, it's like, wow, people were really good to us. Like, everybody had a hard job. Nobody had it easy. Nobody was sitting pretty. And the festivals and the bands and the promoters, and especially independent promoters, but also the big ones, AEG, Live Nation, they always made space for us, literally. And I haven't even thought about it that much in this context, but it's like, wow, the amount of breaks we got compared to the breaks we didn't get was really incredible, considering how tough a job everybody had in that ecosystem. Nobody could be floating. Nobody had spare money or spare time. They found the money and they found the time. So I'm certainly grateful to you in every way as a board member and as a festival promoter. But I do want to take this moment to just like a little, moment of gratitude that, God, I just look back at the value and the favors and the time that were gifted to headcount over these last 2 decades, and it's mind blowing.
Well, I mean, it's incredibly important, and I think everyone recognizes the value and the importance of what headcount does as an organization. Two, it's also the relationships that you've built over the years and the way that you've gone about, creating those favors, if you will. I mean, it's just, that's a thing, for sure. And I want to jump to the current with that, because you did the heavy lifting and you built this incredible rock of a foundation for the organization. 2022, 2023 comes along. You're feeling like it's time for you now to hand it off. That heavy lifting is done. You've built it, and now you want to ensure that headcount not only sustains itself, but goes into an even greater and deeper possible realm here. So you tap our current executive director to take the reins, and I'd love for you to talk about Lucille and your journey there and how she came to be the current executive director.
Sure. Well, talk about another, I can't believe this crazy plan worked. Right around the 22 election, I let the staff and the board know that the following year would be my last as executive director, and I thought it was time to pass the baton. And knowing that we still were at a point where we were a little ragged, we probably weren't ready yet to make that smooth handoff, even after 18 years or whatever it was at the time, and spent really the next year getting ready. We announced in April that we were looking for someone, and I almost immediately heard from Lucille Winagemi. And Lucille was someone who was on our advisory board, so who I knew. And the day that I heard that Lucille was interested was literally one of the most important days ever at Headcount, because even though I didn't know Lucille well at the time, I knew she was a rock star. And I was like, wow, this crazy plan might just work. And what we did was Lucille joined us officially. Her first day was September 11th, 2023, coincidentally. And she and I worked as peers side by side as co-executive directors for 4 months. And then starting January 1st, my title changed to senior advisor. And now I basically work for Lucille in a limited capacity, in really any way I can support her. And I got to tell you, as you've seen, that lane has gotten narrower and narrower because she is just crushing in so many different areas. I still like to think I contribute in a pretty material way. I'm involved in key relationships, fundraising, a few aspects where I can really deliver a lot in a small amount of time. But mostly I've just sort of been kind of the cheerleader and the whisperer of institutional knowledge. And Lucille has just like run with this thing in an incredible way. The organization, I believe we're over 375,000 voters registered this year. We're doing better financially. We've grown to a point where we're really a very different organization than we were even a year ago, and way different than we were 10 years ago. And Lucille, for anybody out there who has not met her, I'm actually going to put her name in the chat so you can Google like Time Magazine with her name, because there's a great profile about her in Time Magazine. But it's just, but I mean, Dave, you've witnessed it. it as a board member, it's really like this transition is gone. Dave, did I lose you there?
You froze a little bit.
All right. Well, anyway, yeah, I was saying that I think you've witnessed this as a board member, and I would just describe it as magical is another great word for how well the transition at headcount has gone.
Yeah, she's a force of nature, without question.
It's so true. And you know, that baton passing, Lucille is exactly 20 years younger than I am. So she's literally the same age I was when headcount started, is when she started with headcount. And that's just a perfect sort of symmetry, full circle kind of thing that headcount, we register young voters. And when it started, I was in the young voter demographic, and I'm definitely not anymore, as you can tell. And so it was really important that we had somebody who, you know, had an eye for pop culture, had an eye for young American culture. It's not lost on me how important it was to have somebody who is not an older white male running the organization. Lucille is a second generation Nigerian immigrant. Lucille has a really interesting background. She has a master's degree in medical science. Not many people working around the music or voting rights world with that. She worked in marketing, then she worked in voting rights and elections, and then joined us. So I've just been I feel very blessed. I feel like the organization got really lucky that we found her, and I think our staff is thriving. And most importantly, we're having impact and setting ourselves up for the future.
Yeah, for those not familiar, do check out headcount.org and feel free to donate if you can. Always important. And, you know, Andy, you did such important work and are doing such important work with headcount, but your recent pivot to incredibly important work with your current position as president of the board at the Divided Sky organization. Talk about how you got involved in that, and thank you for that important work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, God, what a crazy year. Like, I did not know this was all going to happen. My intent for the year, and I still work for Headcount as a consultant, and there's a solid part of my week that's doing that. And I gave myself the winter. I said, I'm not going to take on any other work other than that. I'm going to go skiing for 3 months and then start a consulting practice. And during that time, I got the call from Patrick Jordan, Trey's manager, asking me to join the board of Divided Sky. And then in March, I got a call from Trey, and I met Trey many times, but I didn't really know Trey. We'd never had a long one-on-one conversation. And for a lifelong Fish fan, just even that is like, you know, a bucket list kind of thing. So we talked for like an hour, and then I got another call from Patrick that week saying, hey, change your plans. We want you to be the board president. And I had the presence of mind to say, okay, I want one thing in return. I want to go to a Ranger game with an Anastasia. It can be Ernie, Trey's dad. I'd rather it be Trey, but I want to go to a Ranger game with one of them. And sure enough, in May, I got to go to a Ranger game with Trey, and that was a lifetime highlight. But enough about me. Let's talk about the foundation. What a ride this has been. And I have been doing the consulting too. I have one other client called the Civic Center that does high school voter registration, and hopefully there'll be more of that kind of work in my future of doing just sort of social impact consulting. But Divided Sky, man, what an incredible ride it's been. I am the token non-sober person in leadership in the organization. I'm the only one really. And they wanted me because they needed somebody to really steer the foundation as opposed to the programming. And the programming, for those who don't know, is we own a facility in Ludlow, Vermont, that is a retreat center for the 12 steps. So people will call it rehab, but rehab is something slightly different. Rehab is like a medical term at this point. And what we do at Divided Sky is a more holistic healing. It's usually a step after somebody has been through rehab or when they've relapsed, and they go to Ludlow, Vermont, to this beautiful, incredible facility where they immerse themselves in the 12 steps, which is by far the most effective method of people maintaining sobriety, is staying active in the 12 steps. And we surround them with love and great food and community and give them the tools to thrive in sobriety. So rehab kind of gets the drugs out of the body and gets the body stabilized. What we do is we're the first step toward a sober life and a life where you can experience joy, which is a big theme in Divided Sky. If you can't enjoy your sobriety, you're probably not going to stick with it. And so we really try to set people up that they're reconnecting with who they are. They're reconnecting with the things they love, whether it's music, whether it's nature, whether it's friendships. A lot of in the recovery world, sometimes people be told, stay away from triggers. You have to like leave your old life behind. That's not the philosophy of Divided Sky. The philosophy of Divided Sky is you can only be who you are. And when you can reconnect with that, reconnect with things that you've lost during struggling with addiction, that's when you can set yourself up long term. And I saw the question about the social links. Yeah, Tom, thanks for putting up the website. The social links are at the bottom of the homepage. That homepage was, by the way, was built by volunteers. And that's one of the things I've been doing with Divided Sky is tapping into the network of fish fans with really high level professional expertise to become part of the project, building websites, marketing plans, all those things. And this is where a lot of the recent successes come from. So it's been a very cool project to be involved with.
It's a talented community
Yeah.
to pull from. And I'm sure people would be more than happy to contribute.
And that's what I found, like, and the currency that we have is Trey's gratitude. And Trey just, he's wonderful. I mean, he's been absolutely an incredible, and we have become thought partners. And I mean, what a joyride for me, for sure. But it's also like, grounded in literally life-saving work. And the people who have come through our program I hear all the time of people like, this saved my life. I talked to one person who had gone through medical rehab, then had a relapse. She described it as, after I was fine for 4 months and then I felt the monkey on my back. My body changed again. And so she tried to go back to medical rehab. Insurance wouldn't cover it. And she didn't know what to do. And Divided Sky took her on a scholarship. And we do offer scholarships. It's really a sliding scale, pay what you can afford. And she's been sober ever since. And she said to me, like, Divided Sky saved my life. And in this case, it was not hyperbole at all. And I also became aware later on of just how acute her issues were, and that we really, really, that she saved her life and Divided Sky helped her do it. And just these things, I mean, voting is really, really, really important. And we use a slogan, vote like your life depends on it. And we all know why we say that and the truth that's in that. But there is a difference. There really is a difference. And Divided Sky, we're literally saving lives. And to be able to do that, but just really using everything I learned at Headcount over 20 years, how we raise money, how we work with volunteers, how we set up at the shows, which Divided Sky is doing at all the fish shows now, including the ones we have coming up this weekend in Albany, which are benefits for Divided Sky. Thank you, Fish. Thank you, Paige and Fish and Mike Gordon for donating that, like, to Trey and us. So yeah, this has been very, very cool. And I go back and forth all day between Divided Sky and Headcount and the consulting work. But I tell you, man, like Divided Sky, like I can work into the night and just always feel this level of satisfaction that sustains you. And it sustained me for many years with Headcount. And now I'm just experiencing that all over again.
Well, and plus you're in a greater impact role in this organization now than perhaps you might be if you were still with Headcount. And the work, like you said, like voting is crucial, but this is life changing and life saving work. I have a friend who was on scholarship at Divided Sky, guitar player, loves Trey. He said those exact words. My time at Divided Sky saved my life. He couldn't do it on his own.
It's wow, and I haven't heard that particular. I
Oh,
think I might know who you're talking about. I might not. Honestly, it's all anonymous. I certainly don't ever hear we don't ever talk internally about who our guests are because that's all very respected. But some people are very out in the open about it or wanted to share their stories. But yeah, and it's like, I really encourage everybody, this kind of group here, like this is something that we all have the ability to mold. Like that's what's so exciting about it. This is a ground floor. And we're, like I'll give an example of I was talking to Anders Beck from Green Sky Bluegrass. And Anders, who is sober and very public about it, wanted to get more involved. We're at the Northlands Festival, and great festival, by the way. And he says to me, hey, I have an idea. What if other sober musicians all did like talks for the guests on Zoom? I was like, that's a great idea. Let's not only make it happen, let's make it happen right now. I walked him over the Divided Sky booth that was there. He met with the program manager. And sure enough, Anders started having Ivan Neville and Scott Metzger. And I think your buddy, Steve Pultz did it. And we have this whole thing. We don't put it on the website. We're not advertising it. I'll share it in a small forum like this. But it's an example of how everyone has something that they can contribute in some way. Sometimes it's money, and that's how Divided Sky got started, is Fish fans donated over $1 million during the Beacon Jams, Trey's shows during the pandemic at an empty Beacon Theater. But it continues, and it continues with the benefit this weekend, and it will continue with just spreading the word. I mean, here's something I love. When you see a friend struggling, you really don't know what to do. If you're not a trained professional, you don't know what to do. I've never known what to do. How do you say, hey, you need rehab? It doesn't sound great. Have you thought of going to Divided Sky? Has a completely different connotation. It's like a hug from Trey. It's like you're staying in your community. And not that everybody comes to Divided Sky has even heard of Fish. There are people there because it provides an excellent essential service. But a small majority of our guests are Fish fans. It's not an overwhelming majority, but it is a majority. And to have I'm finding this in my own life now, a couple people where I've just been like, hey, I think you need help. Would you consider going to Divided Sky? And it's like, they're like, really? Is that an option for me? And it's such a warm conversation that we have this resource now in our community that we didn't have before. And I just love working on it. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and mostly because I got to see the Rangers with Trey, but all this other stuff too. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man. There's the musicians you mentioned, Anders. I mean, there's so many musicians who are sober and in recovery, that there's so much there. That I think I've spoken to you about the Park City Song Summit, which was started by Ben Anderson, who's also a musician and a retired attorney. He plays in his own little Grateful Dead tribute band called the Ico All Stars. But he started this festival, and it's a wellness and mindfulness based festival, music festival, and it's all about how we treat one another and how we take care of one another and ourselves. And it's just it's the most nurturing environment, and it's very vulnerable. I wept at the last one when Ivan Neville spoke about his upbringing and the struggles that he went through, and to get through to the other side. And there's such an incredible community of musicians that I think it's important to expand that and bring that into not only to Divided Sky, but I have a dear friend who's a recovery specialist, Tommy Rosen, and his Recovery 2.0. And I think I've spoken to you about Tommy. I don't know if you know Tommy, but if you've been connected with
I
Tommy.
met Tommy at at Newport, and maybe you introduced us. Yeah, we had.
Yeah, he was there this summer. That's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're at such an opportunity right now to really open the pipeline there for Divided Sky, so it can do even more great work.
Yeah, and that's really a key part of my role. And Divided Sky has had an interesting journey where it started with the Beacon Jams, raised a bunch of money. Then there was incredible work done behind the scenes to get the facility open, like remodeling a facility, purchasing a facility, raising a lot more money to be able to do that from a few very generous donors. Incredible work before I got involved. And then it hit a kind of weird turn where, because the people involved generally were core recovery professionals, many who'd spent an entire career. Trey's program officer in drug court, Melanie Gould, is the key force behind all of this. And these folks are incredible pros who come at it from the recovery world. And in that period, there wasn't really a lot of need for all this sort of community work because it was about getting a building open. And by the time I got involved in March, we'd been open since November, and there were some real challenges with just getting people aware of it and through the door. And it was like easy pickings, because it was like, oh, we just need to start talking to the community. And we did a few basic things, like we did a Zoom where Trey met the heads of all the yellow balloon groups, the sober groups, not just Fish's Fellowship, but Wharf Rats and Digital Buddhas and the different groups, Jellyfish, like different bands, yellow balloon groups. And then we did like a letter from Trey on his social media, really basic things that just changed the whole dynamic. But the other piece of this was really talking to people like Tommy and a guy named Keith Fearman and other people who were already connected to the music. They were already Fish fans or Dead fans, but had also spent their careers in recovery, and that overlapping Venn diagram. And there were a lot of people like that. There was something called the Fells in the Field, which is a Facebook group of Fellowship, which is Fish's sober group, but of people who work in recovery. And we started speaking to those folks. And so we've been building a network somewhat of just music industry professionals or Fish fans who are professionals in other areas, and then these folks at the middle of the Venn diagram. And this is, I mean, this is how to build something in the music scene. As you just look around you and you look at all the incredible talent. I'm just seeing the names in the chat, and I know so many of you, and each and every one of you who I know, you are like very accomplished professionals. And um, with each person, there is something that they can share with Divided Sky if just given the opportunity. And sort of one by one, very slowly, I've been talking to different people in the last 6 months about, where they might fit into this. And we built a small team, a manageable team, ranging from total volunteers, people who volunteered, and then like Paige Clem, who used to work with you, who's been doing just an amazing job for Divided Sky, doing a lot of our marketing. And that's for me has just been a really fun part of this is building back a team very much in the way we did with Headcount for years, where it's just like, all right, who can help out? Some people started as volunteers, eventually became staff. We have a great young woman, Sarah Kuyat, for Divided Sky, who's doing our tabling now. And she's like, I feel like we're doing exactly what worked best with Headcount, was giving young people opportunities to show what they're capable of, and maybe even a different trajectory in their lives. Sarah is sober, and she was working an Eggy sober table at Sphere at Brooklyn Bowl after Sphere. And I just started talking to her for a while, and then she mentioned that she was planning to do the whole Fish tour for fun. And a few weeks later, after talking to her, like, well, why don't you take our operation on the road? And she just did a great job. And Trey even played a song, gave her a song request. She requested I Ficus, which hadn't been played in 26 years, and they busted it out that night. So there's so many feel good moments here. And I know we have to wrap up, but I'm just like, I'm just really grateful to have had this opportunity. I'm grateful to the, whether it's headcount or Divided Sky or High Sierra, these things are built through people's generosity of spirit. And whether it's money or whether it's time or expertise or just uh, choosing that's where they're going to put their entertainment dollars, all of it. Um, these are the things that really make it go. And to just be a conduit for that is about as much satisfaction that you can generate from anything.
I had a final question for you. So the Divided Sky it's a residential recovery center. How many people can you house and treat at any one given time? And it's a 3-month program? People come in, cycle out. Is it all residential? How does that work? Just so I can have a visual.
So it can be any length. Emily Himes, thanks for tuning in. A great head counter there. It's usually 30 days. But some folks go longer, and it's not unusual, and we'll usually steeply discount it if people go longer. It's a $7,500 monthly fee, which is a sliding scale, so that's at the top of it. But if people are not able to do that, we work with them, and if they stay longer, we work with them. And it's all residential, though we do host AA meetings there in Ludlow. And we also have a 1-week recovery recharge program, which is generally for folks who are in recovery, are sober, but just want to kind of do deeper learnings around the 12 steps. And it's a week intensive learning program. I think that's a very cool thing. And because it's all about tools. It's all about tools. Our purpose is to help people thrive in sobriety. And so that can come at almost any step of their journey. But for most people, it's coming at a time of really great need, but there's also people who can come back at a time of just wanting to really enrich and enhance a sober life.
And how important a role does food, nutrition, and diet play in the treatment there?
Such a great question. So we have a chef there who really focuses on that. And one of the things that we know is that when somebody is struggling with addiction, their body is depleted. So he focuses on meals that put key nutrients back in the body, really something that's physiological. And I also hear the food is great.
Well, super important. Martha always says food is medicine, so it's very true.
I'll wrap it up, Dave, by saying we're doing an open house on Monday after Albany. So we have 3 shows coming up. This is a week from Monday. And then at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, we're just opening the doors. No RSVP needed. So if anybody's really interested in checking this out and seeing the place, we're not advertising this on social media, so it's going to be small, but I'll tell this group here, the address is on the website, so you don't have to do anything. If you do want to let me know you're coming, you can. I'm going to throw my LinkedIn right here, and I'll put my email address down. So feel free to reach me and say you want to come and check out Divided Sky, but you also can just show up. And I'll be in Albany all 3 nights. We have a great pre-show event with Water Wheel, and I'm also available for anything headcount related. Often I'll connect somebody with Lucille. Sometimes I'll just kind of point somebody in another direction or work with someone directly. But it's been it's just been a really, really gratifying year. And I'm grateful to you, Dave, and I'm grateful to the headcount board for believing in this crazy plan. I came to them and said, my plan is I stick around, but I stick around as an advisor to make sure everything goes okay. And we're going to have a new leader, and you guys believed in me and what I think was a very I think this is the way all organizations transition. I think we could do a master class on transition with how well it's gone. but none of that would have been possible without your support and the support of so many people. So there's no, you can never give too much gratitude. I've seen Trey do a great job of that, and I hope I do the same.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Really, thanks for a great hour. I love you. And Tom, thanks for having us on today.
Hey, thank you. And thank you for all the amazing work that you both do to make this music industry and this world a better place for the rest of us. Andy, you know I'm one of your biggest fans. I always have been. What you've done at Headcount over the years is truly a master class in community building. And now what you're doing at Divided Sky, just keep going, man. Long live Andy. And Dave, I can't wait to visit High Sierra next year. It's one of the holes in my music festival resume, which doesn't have very many holes actually, but that one's going to get filled next year. I wish you the best and success, and keep doing what you're doing. To the audience, I promised you'd leave smarter and more enlightened and more inspired than you arrived. And I guarantee you we delivered on that promise today. And so thanks for your time and attention, and supporting these two great organizations that these guys are involved with. We'll be back next Thursday. No, excuse me, we will not be back next Thursday. Apologies. Next week is a great music conference out in Santa Monica run by a dear friend of mine, Dimitri Vietzi. He's putting on the Music Tectonics Conference, and I do not program one of my webinars to conflict with his conference. So if you're in Southern California next week, I promise you'll benefit from going. We will see you back here on Halloween. Yes, the 31st at 2 o'clock New York time. With that, I'll say my goodbye. Be nice to each other and vote like your fucking life depends on it, because it does.